All right. Welcome, everyone. Bill hearings today. We're going to start with our treasurer, House Bill 605. Mr. Treasurer, great to see you. And if you have your team with you, come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. I'm going to outline the bill, but then equally important, I want to tell you why I brought it here today. But we're going to try to get through this quick. To my right is Laura Addis, Deputy Treasurer for Public Policy. And so, as you know, I'm Derek Davis, Treasurer for the state of Maryland. Today I come before you in my capacity not only as state treasurer, but also as a member of the Board of Trustees for the Maryland Teachers and State Employees Supplemental Retirement Plan. Last session, the committee passed a similar version of this bill, Senate Bill 3322 on sine die. This year, I have picked up the mantle because I feel strongly that there is more work to be done to help prepare Marylanders for retirement. You will remember that this is the bill that automatically enrolls new state employees. Let me say that again, and automatically enrolls new state employees hired after January 1, 2026 into the 457B plan and placed into the target fund that most closely corresponds to their anticipated year of retirement. Employees who do not want to participate will have 90 days, the maximum allowed per IRS rules, from the date of the first payroll deduction to elect to opt out. The process for opting out is simple. Just call or email to the plan administrator and the completion of paperwork, and the employee will receive a check or ACH refund. There is no penalty for opting out within the period. The employees who remain will have complete control over their contributions into the plan. This means they can roll their funds into the 401k plan, adjust their contribution amounts, or stop contributions altogether. The magic behind House Bill 605 is that we will be removing administrative barriers to enrolling. Time and again, research shows that retirees are not adequately prepared for retirement, something that also holds true for our state employees. As of the third quarter of 2024, only 40.5% of all eligible state employees were actively participating in their supplemental retirement savings by deferring contributions to the MRSP plan accounts. In 2023, MSRP conducted a survey of existing studies to better understand employee retirement readiness in the automatic enrollment landscape. As expected, the survey confirmed that a common impediment to retirement savings is the requirement to self-enroll. The survey further found that 74% of working adults prefer to be automatically enrolled in a retirement savings plan. We can go on and on with this. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you my why. When I first came down here, I was 27 going on 28 years old, wasn't married, any children. Retirement was the furthest thing from my mind. But one day you look up and you're not 27 anymore, you're 54, and you got 2 adult children, one in college, and retirement is no longer 40 years away, it's 4 years away. When we had a bill a few years ago, similar to this, Maryland Saves. It was actually for the business community. I thought I was going to have something great, and then I looked around here. I think it was just 4 of you here: the chairman, the vice chairman, and a couple of members from the minority party. Most of you weren't here, I think, in 14, 16. Thank you, when we did this. But at that time, research showed that with less than, 10 years ago before retirement, like 80 or 90% of the people had less than $10,000 saved. Now, we understand that people have to live now, but I promise you, tomorrow is coming. As a matter of fact, the term that was being used was silver tsunami. Silver tsunami, and that the state was going to have to take care of these people. That's what it comes down to now. As your treasurer, there's lots of things. Let me just say there are lots of things I know that's going on. I don't want to get into it now. But the point is, we're not going to be able to. you all know the budget situation now far better than I do. And one of the things, if we're being blunt, one of the things when I talk to the rating agencies that they sort of, we go back and forth on is the state's debt liability. And specifically, they mention the pension fund. Now, I will defend that till the cows come home. That's, you guys make the policy and we carry it out. But it may be, and I might be taking a leap here, but it might be unrealistic to think that we're going to be able to continue enhancing it. But these people are still going to age. They're still going to come to retirement year. And so my thinking is the more revenue streams that they have, the better they'll be able to live in those golden years. There's nothing wrong with working at Walmart, but I want that to be their choice. They want something to do, not because they have to. 74 years old, work their entire life, but they need to work at Walmart to make ends meet. And auto enrollment is nothing new. Social Security is auto enrollment. And I don't know anybody, Democrat or Republican, well, I won't say I don't know anybody, but the vast majority of the people, that's a sacred cow now. And for those of us who are getting a little closer to that age, it becomes more important. But the solvency of that now, I don't think it's going to go broke, but I think there's a very real chance that Social Security by 2032, I think it is, if Congress hasn't fixed it, it's going to be reduced by 25%. We have a problem, and so trying to get ahead of this thing, and no one's saying that this is going to be, let's be clear, no one is saying this is going to solve that issue. But for every, having these different pots of money and so forth that we can turn to when we get older makes all the difference in the world. And so let me close by saying this. To be clear, this isn't about the state. I mean, we're not trying to take the employees' money to fund a new program or to do this or to do that and so forth. This is the state providing essentially assistance to encourage them to save for their own future, for their own economic well-being, so that they aren't eating things that, we wouldn't have our grandparents, our parents and grandparents to eat to make ends meet, or worried about where their shelter is going to be or anything like that. And I know that the opponents of the bill feel the same about this that I do, because we've had conversations and the amendments that are before you, they were with some of the objections they had in mind. I agreed with them. So we put amendments in there to address those concerns. But ultimately, and I get people have to live right now, but you just can't not think about tomorrow, because tomorrow will become today. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I went on longer than what I thought, but this issue is actually more important to me than I originally thought. When you just start, when you see those people trying to make ends meet and they can't, it's a tough thing to watch. So thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
These issues when you were chair of ECM, and so you take as much time as you need, Mr. Treasurer. Any questions for our treasurer? Laura, are you testifying or just here for a question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hi, I'm Laura Addis, Deputy Treasurer for Public Policy. The Treasurer mentioned that we have 3 amendments for your consideration, and they're covered in the Treasurer's written testimony. Just to quickly touch on them, the first amendment is one that your committee adopted last year to Senate Bill 322. That provides flexibility for higher education institutions that participate in the optional retirement plan, so they could select the supplemental plan that they wanted to use for their employees. The second amendment sets a ceiling on the minimum default deduction amount. So AFSCME in particular had raised concerns that the bill didn't have any parameters or guidelines on what the default deduction amount would be. So this amendment would say that the MSRP board could select the amount, but it couldn't exceed $25. That's not meant to signal that that has to be the right number, but we thought that that was, looking at other states, that number gave us some comfort that it would be a good ceiling. And then the last amendment is one that would require employees to be offered virtual or in-person counseling about the plan. Concerns have been raised that some employees might just kind of miss the 90-day period to opt out and then be in the plan without wanting to be. And so the treasurer wanted to make sure that people had a touch point with someone in the plan administrator's office to make sure that they know and opt out within the time frame. So that's it. Thank you.
Questions for the treasurer, his team? Okay. Thank you for being with us, sir. It's always great to see you.
Good luck, guys.
Thanks. A couple of witnesses here in favor, Tammy Bresnahan and Josh Freely.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the House Appropriations Committee. My name is Tammy Bresnahan. I am the Senior Director of Advocacy for AARP Maryland. On behalf of more than 850,000 members, we appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of HB 605. I can't say it any more or better than the treasurer said, but let me just give you one thing that you might hear in opposition testimony. Beyond increasing participation, automatic retirement contributions offer immediate financial benefits. Contributions to a 401k plan are made with pre-tax dollars, reducing taxable income and lowering an employee's immediate tax burden. It also, for example, an individual earning $35,000 annually who contributes 6% or $2,100 into a tax-deferred 401k reduces their taxable income to $32,900. Without the contribution, they would owe 25% in taxes on that $2,100, amounting to $525. Instead, that money is invested and grows tax-deferred, potentially resulting in significant retirement savings. Lowering the taxable income, you'll hear that the state employees don't make enough money, that they are already stretched, and this is an opportunity for them to take even more money home. These contributions may also help taxpayers qualify for credits, deductions, and benefits tied to income thresholds. And we ask you, and we thank the treasurer for being very persistent on this issue because it's important, as we all know, and we ask you respectfully for a favorable report on House Bill 605. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. My name is Josh Freely, and I am the Regional Vice President for State Government Relations for TIAA. Founded in 1918, TIAA is the leading provider of retirement services for those in the academic, research, medical, and cultural fields. We have a long history of partnering with the state of Maryland. We currently manage about $30.5 billion for 141,000 residents of the state of Maryland. 2 years ago, TI introduced our Retirement Bill of Rights, which crystallizes the continued need to advance changes that will help more Americans achieve a secure retirement. One of our core values is to enable people to have an easier time in enrolling in the workplace retirement plan. The best way to do that is through automatic enrollment. And it does that because it eliminates the enrollment process, which often is a barrier to people's enrollment, whether it's through procrastination or a lack of knowledge about the plan. Automatic enrollment helps people overcome those barriers. And the federal government and Congress actually codified this idea into law in Secure Act 2.0 in 2022. And as of 2025, every new retirement plan, workplace retirement plan is automatically enrolled. Every new ERISA plan. So studies and anecdotal accounts have indicated that automatic enrollment could significantly increase participation in workplace retirement plans. One recent study found that 48% of new hires who are automatically enrolled, it increased participation by new hires in workplace retirement plans, and we think that is a really, really, really great result. TI appreciates the opportunity to express our support for HB 605. We believe that automatically enrolling state workers in the state supplemental retirement plan is an excellent public policy advancement that will significantly improve these employees' ability to save for secure retirement.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
happy to answer
Thanks
questions.
for being with us. Thank you. Any questions for these witnesses? Okay, thanks to you both for being with us. Denise is here, opposed to the bill from AFSCME. Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Gilmore, and I'm the Legislative and Political Director for AFSCME Maryland. As this is a third year that we've opposed this bill and I've submitted written testimony, I too will try to be brief. I will just start, you heard earlier an amendment was offered that there is a $25 ceiling for deductions potentially. I just want to remind the committee that, I think it was about 2 weeks ago at this point, we filled the room with state employees who were, fighting a potential 1% cut. $25 out of their pay is more than 1%. When I say that state employees can't afford this, it's true oftentimes. I think the person testifying before me mentioned that, even a non-tax rate, it drops down to $32,000. Try making a decision on living on $32,000 a year in this state. I mean, that's incredibly difficult to do. And, the purpose of a supplemental plan is to build wealth in your retirement. The purpose of a pension is to maintain your cost of living in retirement. I just want to remind the committee that our employees are already paying oftentimes 7% of their income towards a pension. And I'll just close by saying that, this is very personal for me too. During the Great Recession, I saw my parents lose thousands of dollars out of their 401k. I mean, it was my dad's military pension that kept them going through their retirement in large part. We're going to do everything we can to maintain our pensions for our members. These bills often lead, they can become a slippery slope. They often lead to, once you say, well, we've already auto-enrolled folks into a 401k, they often then lead into discussions on, well, it's much easier to look at maybe other options with the pension. So we just implore this committee, we've brought it before, state employees do not want this. I actually have a member with us here today. I just asked him to do another check. It was also a, no, this is not a good idea. I just urge the committee to provide a unfavorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Delegate Stanko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask these same questions every year. So first off, it's an auto enrollment. Does the employee have the ability to go in and then withdraw themselves after they're enrolled?
Our concern is always with the process in that. It can be pretty difficult and I've had people who have law degrees, right, struggle with figuring out how to access their accounts under the current supplemental plan. We're concerned, we have a sizable portion of our membership that, doesn't have college degrees. We're just very concerned that the process is going to be complex.
Okay, so I'll follow up with a question if that's okay. Two quick questions to follow up. You mentioned not having college degrees. Part of that's the learning period. The historical average return of the S&P 500, if a 20-year-old puts $1 in, a 20-year-old puts $1 in at 20 years old and waits until they're 65 without withdrawing, are you aware how much money that has returned historically?
I don't, and I want to be clear, we've got nothing against supplemental plans. We have an issue with forcing people into them. Right now, there is nothing stopping a single state employee from joining a supplemental retirement plan if they want. It's a voluntary option. The supplemental plan already has access to new hires. You all gave a wonderful match program a few years ago. You returned it. I think the fact that people still aren't signing up is probably an indication of affordability.
Appreciate that. The historical return is 88 times that dollar. So think about it as an army of dollar bills. The education piece is critical, which is, you just mentioned, if they don't have one with a college degree. If you wait until you're 30, that dollar becomes only worth 25. That dollar's only worth 25 times. And so the learning period the learning period that's most important is those first 10 years. And so providing, from my perspective and the bill sponsor's intentions, that learning perspective is really important. So, that growth period for compound interest is really important.
I will say, if I may, sorry, Madam Chair, I will say I've heard our members, because we've had good dialogues with our members over the years on this. I mean, one of the things we consistently hear what they would like is more counseling, more like one-on-one, unbiased counseling, right? I mean, I think the counseling, and again, I'm not disparaging the supplemental plan at all, but they're selling a product, right? I think we would love to, I know we've had conversations with like the Cash Campaign, who has an infrastructure on this. I mean, one of the things we would certainly love to see come out of all of this is more financial planning resources for our members, for sure.
If not, that ends the bill hearing on HB 605. Next up is a string of pensions bills, and these came out of work of the agency, the pensions agency, the pension board, and the Joint Committee on Pensions in the fall. And we have Ann Gothrop, who's moving up to the desk. She is my liaison there, who has more institutional knowledge in her little finger about pensions than the rest of us in the whole room, I would bet on. And she does it all with joy, and I also want to thank Joe Gupferlet, because he was very helpful with all of these bills. And I will begin, as the chair of pensions, with HB 584, which is a work group to study transfers between systems. This legislation would create a work group convened by the State Retirement Agency to study Title 37 of the State Personnel and Pensions article that governs the transfer of service from any state or local retirement pension system to another state or local or retirement or pension system. This work group will make recommendations to improve the process of transfers between systems. Provisions within Title 37 include those that address types of service credit that may be transferred from one system to another, the member contributions and interest rate that must accompany those transfers, and the time frame under which transfers must be made. The agency has identified many inconsistencies, duplicative provisions, and ambiguities throughout this title. This work group will bring forth recommendations for code revisions to ensure that the statute is clear and that the State Retirement Agency is able to implement these provisions. And there is one technical amendment that will add Frederick County and Anne Arundel County to the work group. And with that, are there any questions? And I ask for a favorable report. Seeing no questions, I will move on to HB 886, which is return to service for deferred vested former members. This bill will provide consistency across several systems and will show that deferred vested members of the Correctional Officers Retirement System, CORS, and the State Police Retirement System, and the Law Enforcement Officers Pension System, LEOPS, who were vested in these plans prior to June 1st, 2011, shall be subject to the same requirements that were in effect in the former plan on June 30th, 2011, regardless of the length of their break in service. So currently, deferred members of CORS, SPRS, and LEOPS who were vested in these plans prior to July 1st, 2011, do not have a provision that allows them to resume membership after a break of service of more than 4 years. These members that return to service after more than 4 years begin a new account with post-July 1, 2011 vesting and service requirements. Staff for the agency can find no indication to suggest that public safety plans were deliberately excluded from the revisions that were enacted to preserve the EPS or TPS members pre-July 1st, 2011 membership status. For consistency across several systems, this legislation should be passed. They are amending out the provision in the bill. There'll be an amendment that makes provisions for the employee pension system and the teacher's pension system for all members that can resume it, because that would fall too much on local governments. And the agency predicts that fewer than 20 people a year will be affected by this change in the law. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to HB 1028. This legislation would create a compensation and staffing committee on the Board of Trustees of the State Retirement Pension System. Currently, in 2018, there was a lot of legislation passed that did a lot of reforms to our system, and one of the things it created was the Objective Criteria Committee. that was charged with recommending to the Board of Trustees objective criteria for determining the compensation and financial incentives for the Chief Investment Officer and other staff within the investment decision. The OCC is only required to meet every 5 years. The HB 1028, the bill before you today, would repeal the provisions of the OCC and replace it with a standing compensation and staffing committee on the Board of Trustees to review criteria for compensation and assist with creating new positions within the investment division. This new committee would allow the Board of Trustees to address address compensation and staffing issues that arise in real time rather than waiting for the OCC to meet. This proposed legislation would also enable the board to hire a compensation consultant to assist both the new committee and the board. The Objective Criteria Committee met regularly throughout the summer of 2018 and made recommendations that served as the foundation for the expansion of our investment division. The Board of Trustees now indicates that a standing committee would better serve the board in accomplishing this work. And I ask for a favorable report. Are there any questions regarding this provision? Then we will move on to HB 1029. This is just a clarifying bill to ensure that HB 1005, legislation that passed in 2024 for members who were employed by the Maryland Department of Health in security attendant positions at state forensic facilities and moved from the employees' pension system to the correctional officers' retirement system, will be allowed to remain in the correctional officers' retirement system if promoted into supervisory roles. Passage of this legislation will clarify that supervisors and managers of security attendants will be members of corps as a condition of employment, which is the true intention of HB 1005. I ask for a favorable report. Thank you. Any questions on? Thank you. So we'll move on to HB 1033, reemployment earnings limitations. This one's a little more complex, but this legislation proposes to increase the reemployment earnings limitation exemption allowed for employees, pension system members, and teachers' pension system, service retirees, and all ordinary disability retirees. Okay. The state personnel and pensions article exempts EPS and TPS service retirees and all ordinary disability retirees from a reemployment earnings limitation if the retiree had an average final compensation, AFC, at the time of retirement that was less than $25,000. This AFC employment exemption was last increased for EPS and TPS service retirees from $10,000 to $25,000 in 2010. And was added for the first time for ordinary disability retirees in 2016. The legislation before you proposes to increase the employment exemption from $25,000 to the current minimum salary on the standard state pay scale as of January 1st of the preceding calendar year. In our current calendar year, that would be an increase to $35,000. Additionally, instead of revisiting the issue periodically, the earnings limitation exemption would increase as the current minimum salary increases. Agency staff reports that in the past 5 years within each group, service, ordinary disability, and accidental or special disability, fewer than 10 retirees per year would have been exempt from the earnings limitation or the temporary suspension if the AFC and reemployment exemption had been $35,000 or less. And I ask for a favorable report. Thank you. Any questions? Coming down the home stretch. HB 1034, this is just alterations and clarifications. This is a clarifying bill that is to correct an unintended consequence of 2020 legislation regarding the state police retirement system, deferred retirement option program or DROP program, and other date changes. This clarifies the intent of the 2020 legislation and eliminates a possible unintended consequence. I ask for a favorable report. Any questions? Thank you. And finally, administrative fees, the repeal. The current method of funding the state retirement agency's administrative fees that was instituted July 1st, 2011 is overly cumbersome. It requires the involvement of the state retirement agency, the Department of Budget and Management, and the Department of Legislative Service. The system's actuary noted that it is unaware of any other public plans that fund their operating expenses through administrative fees. That is the current practice in Maryland. HB 1072 will replace the current process of funding the operating system with the current formula and will return to the past practice of funding the agency's operating system through funds drawn down from the trust. These funds will be collected through an additional operating expense percentage added to the employer contribution rate determined by the system's actuary each fiscal year. This proposal would have no fiscal impact on the system because the operating expense percentage determined by the system's actuary should be comparable to the amount the agency otherwise would collect in administrative fees. There's one technical implementation amendment that doesn't change the substance of the bill, and I would ask for a favorable report. Any questions? That ends the bill hearing on 1072. And it ends my time in this chair, I think. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Call the next bill. Next up is HB 1102, Delegate Griffith, State Retirement and Pension System, Military Service Credit. Got it. Thank you.
Good job, Madam Chair. So Delegate Griffith,
He's on his way, so I can either do the testimony or.
why don't we do this? You stay there.
All right.
I'm going to take the prior auth bill, House Bill 1519, Chair of Capital Budget Subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to members of the Appropriations Committee. This is House Bill 1519. This is the annual prior authorization bill. What the bill does is alter either the grantees, the extended timeline, or extended purpose. And I ask the committee to move favorable, please. Thank you.
Questions on the annual prior auth bill? I don't see any. I think Delora wanted to testify. I think she wanted an extension for the life bridge that's in the bill, so I'll just put that into the record.
Sounds good.
And we'll take a look at that. She's going to work with counsel on it, okay? All right. Mr. Hogan, is that good? All right. We're going to go back to Delegate Griffith's bill. It's our last bill, and you can filibuster for a little while, but if we get to the end, we're just going to have to move on. All right, so we're going to go back to House Bill 1102.
Oh, saved by the bell.
Thank you, very sorry. Thank you, Chair Barnes, Vice Chair Chang, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Mike Griffith. I'm requesting a favorable report on HB 1102, the State Retirement and Pension System, Military Service Credit Eligibility. This bill is a reintroduction of HB 791, which was brought forward during the 2021 session by Delegate Pat Young. This bill is very straightforward as it allows a member or a vested former member of state retirement systems for the state police, law enforcement officers, or correctional officers to earn military service credit towards their retirement pension plans, even if they already received service credit for that same military service under another retirement system. This allowance already exists in the state for those who enter into a state retirement system and have received military credit for their service through Social Security, the National Railroad Retirement Act, or the National Guard Reserves. So all HB 1102 does is bring those entering into pension systems via the state police, law enforcement officers, and correctional officers into line with those allowances. The rationale for this bill has always been that of retirement and of recruitment and parity. On the recruitment front, the initiative of receiving military service credit towards a pension plan could be used to attract qualified candidates with a service record for employment within the state police, law enforcement, or correctional fields. These are folks who have already served their country and are bringing to the table a wealth of experience, discipline, and knowledge. Currently, we can understand the need for a bill of this nature. Not only does Maryland lag behind when it comes to provide incentives for military personnel transitioning to civilian life who choose the state as their forever home, but with the decline in police and correctional recruitment and rising attrition rates, Maryland must be a leader on addressing this issue and head on this issue head on, and HB 1102 provides just that. On the parity front, as shared earlier, if you're a member of a local police unit and come into that position after your service in the Guard or Reserves, you'll be able to claim up to 5 years on the back end of your police pension. But if you're not from one of those units, but do have military service, you cannot receive this allowance. As a result, this creates an uneven playing field. So HB 1102 levels that playing field by allowing military credit to be used towards credit via one of the 3 pension systems. And just so you know, same thing applies for the Maryland General Assembly. I'm able to use 5 years of my military time towards my pension here at the General Assembly. So I urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the bill. Any questions? All right, have a great day, sir. We do have one witness here, Donald Hawkins, who is not Denise Gilmore, but is from AFSCME. Welcome.
Oh, we got that out of the way. All right, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm Donald Hawkins. I'm the former Director of Flight Operations for the Maryland State Police Aviation Command. Appreciate the opportunity here. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel from the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I do, and I have already earned the 5-year military credit. Currently now pending my soon to retire. I've got, I'm back as a trooper, a pilot flying out of Trooper 4. So this bill, and I have testified to this bill before, and there was a lot of emotion and fairness in that bill, and I'd like to address maybe something else, maybe from the Director of Flight Ops, former Director of Flight Ops perspective. It's not about fairness, it's really about smart financial decision benefits, and really in recruitment, retention, cost, and savings, which were my big things that I had to try and recruit in a competitive world. First, this bill applies to fewer than 20 retired active duty veterans. That finally has come across the table. When previous, I've gone out the door, I heard the comment, oh, this affects 800 people. No, those 800 people are already getting this. This just affects about 20, of which about 10 of them are in my shop. This is Maryland's best recruitment strategy, especially for pilots, to hire military-trained pilots later in their careers after they've built decades of experience, no cost to the state. These are guys and gals with thousands of flight hours ready to serve immediately in high-risk medevac, search and rescue, and law enforcement missions. And I'm sure in the other corrections, the same value. The challenge, in my case, is without the incentive to stay, many of these guys and gals leave before the 10 years, before they vested. There's no incentive to stay. The military service credit ensures that when we invest over $100,000 in training a new pilot, we retain them past 10 years instead of losing and repeating the hiring cycle. I got offered $100,000 from Piedmont Airline to go back and be an airline pilot. I'm a reserve. I get this. At 7 years, I made the conscious decision to stick it out to vest at 10. And I'm sitting here at 11. All right. It works. Finally, this bill, there's the other, truth. It reduces long-term pension costs. We're hiring pilots later in their life. We're not we're retiring them. We're not having to pay as much to train them, and we're retiring them when they're older, and that shortens the number of the years they're collecting retirement. We hire them later. We benefit from their training. We keep them longer, and the reality is they're going to die sooner. I mean, so.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Not about just supporting veterans for all the right reasons. It's also about making a good business decision. I support and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Very compelling. Sir, you want to take questions? I don't know if there'll be any. Any questions for the witness?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll drag you back up. There weren't any, so it's okay. All right, that concludes the bill hearing. We're going to vote in 30 minutes. So let's say 2:15. And come back and vote at 2:15.